Episode 4. Someone else felt it. The city did not react to Lucas disappearing. There were no sirens, no announcements, no sudden tightening of rules or conversations. The world accepted the absence the way it accepts thousands of others every day, quietly, efficiently, without asking too many questions. That frightened Ethan more than panic ever could have. He stood beneath the bridge long after Claire had stopped shaking, staring at the space where Lucas had been. The air there felt clean, almost polished, as if something had passed through and taken care to leave no residue behind. No distortion, no echo, no sign, just an emptiness so complete it felt intentional. Claire finally broke the silence. "We should go." Ethan nodded, though his body resisted the idea of leaving. Some part of him felt that if he turned away, the moment would seal itself permanently, becoming just another crossed-out entry on a list he could no longer afford to misunderstand. They walked back toward the street without speaking. Neither of them looked back. The next morning, Lucas's desk was empty. The teacher paused briefly when she reached his name during attendance, then moved on without comment. No one questioned it. No explanation followed. A few students glanced at the vacant chair, shrugged, and returned to their notes. Absence, Ethan realized, was easier to accept than uncertainty. Claire sat beside him, silent, her jaw set in a way that suggested she was holding herself together by force of will alone. "They're not even asking," she whispered. Ethan didn't reply, because he knew the answer. Time didn't remove people loudly. It edited them. The first sign came just after lunch. Ethan was walking down the main hallway when he heard someone laugh behind him. A sharp, startled sound that cut through the ambient noise of the school. He turned instinctively. A boy he didn't recognize stood near the lockers, his hand pressed flat against his chest, eyes wide. "Did you feel that?" The boy asked no one in particular. The hallway slowed. A few students looked at him strangely. One of them snorted. "Feel what?" The boy swallowed. I don't know. It was like the room blinked. Ethan felt the pressure behind his eyes spike. Claire stiffened beside him. The boy shook his head, embarrassed now, the moment already slipping away from him. "Never mind," he muttered, grabbing his bag and walking off quickly. But Ethan saw his hands shaking. Someone else had felt it. Not at 3:07. Not at night. In the middle of the day. By evening, the city felt wrong in a way Ethan had never experienced before. Not broken. Not frozen. Uneven. Sounds arrived slightly late. Traffic flowed in short, stuttering bursts. Conversations overlapped awkwardly, as if people were stepping on each other's words without realizing why. At a crosswalk near his house, Ethan watched the signal flash walk and don't walk at the same time for several seconds before resolving itself. No one reacted. Pedestrians adjusted automatically, trusting the correction. Ethan didn't. He reached his room and shut the door quietly, standing still for a moment with his hand on the knob. The space beyond the door felt settled, as if it had been waiting for him again. He didn't turn on the lights immediately. He listened. The fan was off. The clock ticked steadily. Nothing moved. Still, he felt watched. Not from one direction, but from many, as if awareness itself had grown wider. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. No words. Just a timestamp. 2:14 p.m. Ethan's stomach tightened. That wasn't his time. The following day confirmed what he had begun to fear. Reports, quiet, fragmented, started circulating. A woman in a grocery store swore the checkout line had stopped moving while she continued forward alone. A man claimed he lost track of several minutes during a phone call, coming back mid-sentence with no memory of the interruption. None of it made the news. None of it lasted long enough to become a story. But the pattern was unmistakable. The experience was spreading. Claire met Ethan after school near the back entrance, her expression tight. "It's not just us anymore," she said. "People are talking. Not openly, but they're asking questions." Ethan nodded. Time doesn't like questions. Claire hesitated. Then why is it letting them happen? That question followed Ethan home. That night, he didn't wait for the hour. He sat on his bed with the lights on, phone in hand, listening to the city breathe beyond his window. The sensation of presence arrived early, subtle but unmistakable, like pressure building before a storm. This time there was no message, no warning, just awareness. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "I know you're here," he said. The fan turned on slowly. The clock hesitated, not stopping, but wavering. Then something changed. Not in his room. Outside. A sound reached him from the street below. A shout, sharp and sudden, followed by another voice raised in confusion. Ethan stood and moved to the window. A small crowd had gathered near the corner. Nothing dramatic, just people standing too close together, gesturing, talking over one another. He leaned closer to the glass. A woman near the center of the group was crying. "I lost it," she kept saying. It was right there, and then it wasn't. Ethan felt a chill spread through him. She wasn't talking about a phone. She was talking about time. The phone vibrated again. Unknown number. "You see it now?" Ethan typed without thinking. "How many?" The reply came slowly. "Enough to matter." The awareness in the room intensified, not focused solely on him anymore, but stretched outward, as if attending to multiple points at once. "Why are you letting them feel it?" Ethan asked. The pause felt longer this time. Then, "Because they noticed you." Ethan's breath caught. He understood. The hunt wasn't just for witnesses. It was for patterns. The next morning, something appeared on the school notice board. Ethan noticed it immediately, even though it was small. A sheet of plain white paper, pinned slightly crooked among club announcements and outdated flyers. No border, no logo, no handwriting he recognized. Just text. Black, clean, deliberate. Claire saw it at the same time he did. They stood side by side, reading. The message was short. Too short. "Did you feel it too? Stop pretending you didn't. You are not the only one." No signature. No date. No explanation. Students passed by without stopping, their eyes skimming over it without registering the meaning. But one girl slowed, frowned, and leaned closer before walking away quickly. Another student paused, read it twice, then glanced around as if suddenly unsure who might be watching. Ethan felt the pressure behind his eyes surge. Claire whispered, "Someone else knows." Ethan nodded. This wasn't time. This was human. Someone had noticed. Someone had remembered. And they had decided not to stay silent. That evening, the poster was gone. Removed cleanly, leaving no torn edges or pinholes behind. But the damage was done. The idea had escaped containment. That night, as Ethan sat awake, the presence returned. Not focused, not narrow, but stretched thin across too many points to count. Time was no longer hunting a single witness. It was responding to a signal. The phone lit up one last time before midnight. Unknown number. This is how it spreads. Ethan stared at the screen, the weight of realization settling into him. Someone else had felt it. And now someone else had spoken. The poster did not disappear quietly. It was removed sometime between fourth period and the end of the school day, lifted cleanly from the notice board as if it had never existed. No torn paper, no bent pin, no mark left behind. The space it had occupied blended back into the clutter of announcements and forgotten events. But the idea it introduced did not leave with it. Ethan felt it immediately. People lingered longer in hallways. Conversations stalled mid-sentence. Students checked their phones more often, glancing up afterward as if expecting disagreement from the air itself. No one spoke openly about the message, but something had shifted beneath the surface. A shared suspicion. Someone else had felt it, and someone else had decided that pretending otherwise was no longer safe. By evening, the city carried the same tension. Not fear, not panic. Tension. Ethan noticed it in the way people paused before crossing streets, in how drivers hesitated a fraction longer at green lights, in the way a cashier stared at the register screen as if it might argue with her. Time was no longer slipping unnoticed. It was being watched. That awareness made it dangerous. Ethan reached home just after sunset. He closed the door behind him and stood still, listening to the house settle. The familiar sounds returned, the refrigerator humming, the faint creak of cooling pipes, but something beneath them felt strained, like a structure holding more weight than it was designed to carry. He went to his room and sat on the bed without turning on the light. The presence arrived almost immediately, not sharply, not aggressively. It settled into the space like humidity, filling every corner without drawing attention to itself. Ethan spoke without raising his voice. "You let that happen." The air did not answer. "You let someone else talk about it." The fan turned on slowly, its blades cutting the air with deliberate care. Ethan understood then that this was not permission. It was tolerance, and tolerance had limits. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. The signal was seen. Ethan's throat tightened. "By who?" he typed. The reply took longer than usual. "By those who have already felt it, and by those who are about to." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. The pressure behind them intensified, not painful but insistent, like a reminder. "You said this was about noticing," he typed. "Now it's spreading." Another pause. Then, patterns spread. Correction follows. Ethan felt a chill. He was no longer certain which side he was on. The next morning, the poster was back. Not in the same place. A different hallway. A different board. Same paper. Same text. Still no name. This time people stopped. Not everyone. Not loudly. But enough. A girl stood reading it longer than necessary, her brow furrowed. A boy laughed nervously and walked away too quickly. A teacher glanced at it and hesitated before continuing down the hall. Someone else had felt it. And now someone else had recognized themselves in the question. By lunch, there were 3 posters. By the end of the day, 5. They appeared without witnesses. No one saw who put them up. No one noticed the moment they arrived. They simply existed, threaded into the environment as if they had always been there. Ethan watched the pattern form with growing dread. This wasn't random. It was coordination. Claire found him near the courtyard, her voice low. "This isn't just one person." "No," Ethan said. "It's a response." "To what?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "To us." Claire stared at him. "Then why isn't it stopping them?" Ethan looked away. "Because stopping it would draw attention," he said. "And attention is how it spreads." That night, Ethan did not sleep. He didn't sit upright or pace the room. He lay on the bed fully clothed, eyes open, listening to the rhythm of the house and the distant sounds of the city beyond his window. The presence did not wait for the hour anymore. It arrived early, subtle at first. A pressure, a weight, a narrowing of possibility. The fan slowed, then resumed, then slowed again, as if uncertain which version of reality it was meant to obey. Ethan felt it then, not hostility, not curiosity, but calculation. "You're losing control," he said quietly. The room did not respond. Instead, the clock hesitated. Not at 3:07. At 2:53. The second hand trembled, then moved forward again. Ethan's heart pounded. Time was adjusting outside its own rules now. That frightened him more than anything that had come before. The phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Control was never the objective. Ethan swallowed. "Then what is?" The reply came slowly, deliberately. "Containment." Ethan's breath caught. "And the posters?" Paused long enough to feel heavy. "Containment is failing." The following day, the first consequence arrived. A student didn't return from lunch. Not disappeared. Not erased. Just misplaced. She walked into the cafeteria at 12:14 p.m. At 12:20, she was still there. At 12:21, no one could remember seeing her leave. Her bag sat beneath the table where she'd been sitting. Her phone buzzed unanswered inside it. Teachers called her name. Friends checked bathrooms and hallways. An announcement echoed through the building asking her to report to the office. Nothing happened. Time did not correct this one quietly. Ethan felt the pressure behind his eyes spike. This wasn't a crossed-out name. This was something Messier. That evening, the posters were gone. All of them. Every board cleared cleanly. as if the school had decided, collectively and silently, that the question was too dangerous to remain visible. But the idea did not leave with the paper. It had already moved. Ethan stood at his window, watching the streetlights flicker in imperfect sequence, listening to distant sirens that arrived a fraction too late. His phone vibrated. Unknown number. You see what happens when silence breaks. Ethan typed with shaking hands. You're punishing them. The reply was immediate. We are correcting instability. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. You're afraid, he typed. The pause that followed was the longest yet. Then, fear is irrelevant. Awareness is not. That night, Ethan understood the truth he had been resisting. The hunt was no longer about individuals who noticed time behaving strangely. It was about information, about memory, about the danger of people realizing they were not alone in what they felt. Someone had asked a question publicly. Time had responded. And now, whoever had put up the posters, whoever had decided silence was no longer acceptable, was no longer just a witness. They were a threat. At 3:06, the room grew heavy. 3:07, nothing happened. Instead, a new message appeared on Ethan's phone. Not a warning, not a rule, a location. A wall near the old transit station. Ethan's pulse spiked. Another line followed. This is where it started. Outside, the city breathed unevenly. And Ethan knew, with sudden clarity, that episode 5 would not be about time at all. It would be about the person who dared to speak without a name.